quality permit to Sapphire Renewable Natural Gas for construction and operation of a greenfield Title V facility that will process landfill gas into natural gas. Sapphire Renewable Natural Gas will be located at 7424 Roseboro Highway, Roseboro, North Carolina, 28382, adjacent to the active landfill at Sampson County Disposal, LLC. Please note that all forms of comments will be received, and all will have equal consideration in the final decision on whether to issue the permit. The Division of Air Quality's Enhanced Public Participation Policy requires a public comment period for the issuance of a Greenfield Title V facilities permit. Due to significant public interest, the Director has decided to conduct this public hearing as part of the comment period to receive your comments. The public hearing announcement was published in the Sampson Independent newspaper and on the Division of Air Quality's website on May 24th, 2023. During this public hearing, we will be receiving oral comments from those individuals who registered to speak at this event. Joining me for this hearing tonight are representatives from the Department of Environmental Quality and the Division of Air Quality's Raleigh Central Office, Sean Taylor, who is the Division of Air Quality's Public Information Officer, Maya Hoon, who is the Department of Environmental Quality's Title VI and Environmental Justice Coordinator, Carolina Jimenez, who is the Diversity and Equity Manager providing Spanish translation assistance today, Booker Pullen, who is an engineering supervisor with the permitting section and the permit engineer for this project, Mark Suella, who is the permitting section chief, Taylor Hartsfield, who is the Deputy Director of the Division of Air Quality and assisting with note-taking during the public hearing. We also have representatives from the Fayetteville Regional Office, including Heather Carter, who is the Regional Supervisor, Stephen Allen, who is the Acting Compliance Coordinator, Jeffrey Cole, who is the Permits Coordinator. He will be our timekeeper for tonight's hearing. Roger Calder, who is the Acting Ambient Monitoring Coordinator. Prashonda Cornelius, who is an Environmental Specialist. We also have Will White, who is the Compliance Supervisor from the Raleigh Regional Office. I would like to thank Full Circle Interpreting, who will be providing simultaneous Spanish interpretation for this public hearing. Our interpreters, Angie Schiavone and Maria Hernandez, are located at a table in the back of the room. Please be aware that they will be translating live into their headsets throughout the event. I would also like to thank any local city or county officials who may have joined us tonight. We appreciate your interest in this very important matter. The comment period for this permit opened on May 24th, 2023, and will close on Friday, June 30th, 2023 at 5 o'clock p.m. In addition to your oral comments tonight, the division is also accepting comments via postal mail, email to daq.publiccomments@ncdenr.gov, and by phone to a voicemail box at 919-707-8726. Also, if you have written comments prepared and wish to submit those tonight, we have a box up front that you may submit your written comments. Please note that all forms of comments will be received and all will have equal consideration in the final decision on whether to issue the permit. As noted in the public notice, copies of the permit application, the draft permit review, and other information concerning the permit application are available to the public at the following locations. 1, the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, Fayetteville Regional Office, located at 225 Green Street, Suite 714 in Fayetteville, North Carolina. And 2, the Division of Air Quality Central Office, Air Permitting Section, located at 217 West Jones Street, Suite 4000 in Raleigh, North Carolina. If you haven't done so and wish to review those materials in person, they are available to you during normal business hours at these locations. Please call in advance to make an appointment. A copy of the draft air permit and draft permit review are also available on the Division of Air Quality's website at ncair.org. That's ncair.org in the section titled Public Engagement. The order of events for this hearing are as follows. First, Booker Pullen of our Raleigh Central office will discuss the permit application and the draft air quality permit. Booker is the permit engineer for this application. This will be followed by the public comment period. Only those individuals who register to speak will be called on to present oral comments. This will allow us to have an accurate hearing record. To provide enough time for public comments, this meeting will be conducted in the following manner. Oral statements will be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes in order to hear as many speakers as possible. We want to provide as much time as possible for all speakers to be heard. This public hearing is scheduled to adjourn no later than 9:00 p.m. tonight. We will call the names of each registered speaker in order of your registration. The first speaker will be called. We will also announce the name of the next speaker in the queue so they can prepare to provide comments. Please proceed to the microphone when your name is called. Your time will start when you begin speaking. We will keep track of your time and will announce when your 3 minutes have expired. Please respect the time of all who wish to present oral comments tonight by adhering to the time limits and closing your remarks as quickly as possible once time is up. If you have registered to speak and will be giving your oral statements in Spanish, our interpreters will be requested to join you when your name is called. To allow time for consecutive interpretation, the speaker and interpreter will be limited to a maximum of 6 minutes. During consecutive interpretation, the interpreter will take notes and communicate the comments and segments back to the hearing officer in English. Cross-examination of the person presenting comments or me, the hearing officer, will not be allowed. However, as the hearing officer, I may ask questions to the speaker for clarification. Questions directed to the Division of Air Quality staff members will not be answered during this hearing. If you have questions for DAQ staff, we can provide you with our contact information so you may contact us during normal office hours. After receiving comments this evening, the public hearing will be closed. However, the period for submitting comments does not close until Friday, June 30th, 2023 at 5:00 p.m. Again, all forms of comments will be received and all will have equal consideration in the final decision on whether to issue the permit. I will now call on Booker Pullen, permitting engineer of the Division of Air Quality, to discuss the application and the air quality permit.
Good evening. My name is Booker T. Pullen, the engineering supervisor for the New Source Review branch in the permitting section for the North Carolina Division of Air Quality and the permit engineer for this application. Sapphire Renewable Natural Gas is a proposed greenfield facility that will be located adjacent to the active landfill at Sampson County Disposal, LLC in Roseboro, North Carolina. Sapphire Renewable Natural Gas and Sampson County Disposal are considered parts of a single stationary source for Title V permitting purposes because both facilities are owned in part or in whole by the same parent company, GFL Environmental Incorporated. Therefore, issuance of a new construction and operation permit for Sapphire Renewable Natural Gas is considered a significant modification of an existing Title V stationary source as defined in 15A NCAC, North Carolina Administrative Code 02Q0500. Sapphire Renewable Natural Gas has requested a separate Title V permit to be issued in its name as opposed to being combined with the existing Title V permit for Sampson County Disposal. The purpose of the proposed greenfield facility will operate independently of the operations of the landfill, but will receive landfill gas that is produced by the anaerobic digestion of municipal solid waste in the Sampson County Disposal landfill. The application 82-00159.22A is for a construction and operation permit for Sapphire Renewable Natural Gas. Currently, Sampson County Disposal burns off its landfill gas using a flare. Sapphire Renewable Natural Gas proposes to accept landfill gas from the Sampson County Disposal landfill, process it into natural gas, and substantially reduce net emissions across the entire site. This gas is comprised of mostly methane that has a heating value comparable to pipeline natural gas. Upon initial startup, the facility plans to compress the natural gas into specifically designed mobile trailers and transport it to a pipeline injection station. Once injected, the natural gas will be distributed to end users as a substitute for fossil fuel-derived natural gas. This type of industry is not subject to any federal regulations such as new source performance standards, national emission standards for hazardous air pollutants, or maximum achievable control technology. However, the facility will be required to comply with the state regulations as codified in the North Carolina Administrative Code. The design capacity of the proposed facility is 6,000 standard cubic feet per minute of landfill gas entering the facility via pipeline from the Sampson County Disposal Landfill only. The landfill gas to renewable gas processing plant will be comprised of the following: compression chiller system, 2 pressure swing adsorption systems, 1 waste gas thermal oxidizer used to control the pollutants removed from the landfill gas conversion process, 1 backup open-type candlestick flare used to burn the off-specification gas, and 2 activated carbon adsorbers for hydrogen sulfide removal from the landfill prior to conversion to natural gas. The facility evaluated its toxic air pollutant emissions, and those of benzene, hydrogen chloride, and vinyl chloride were above the toxic air pollutant permitting emission rates in 15A North Carolina Administrative Code 02Q0711. Dispersion modeling for these 3 toxic air pollutants showed each was less than 1% of the respective acceptable ambient level. The modeling was approved by the Division of Air Quality's Analysis Branch on April 12, 2023. Due to concerns regarding the presence of per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, or PFAS, at the Sampson County Disposal Landfill, the air quality permit for Sapphire Renewable Natural Gas will include a state enforceable only condition for the disclosure of information relating to emissions of fluorinated chemicals. Additionally, the permit will include a condition requiring an initial sampling test of the inlet gas for the presence of PFAS. The draft permit includes conditions that ensure ambient levels of all pollutants beyond the facility's fence line comply with federal and state emission standards, including applicable health-based standards. The facility will be subject to record-keeping and report requirements and regular inspections. Thank you.
Thank you, Booker. At this time, we will hear from those who registered to provide oral comments this evening. When your name is called, please proceed to the microphone. To ensure our records are complete, please clearly state your name and who you are representing. Your comments will be recorded, so please speak loudly and clearly toward the microphone. I will do my best to pronounce your names correctly and apologize in advance for any errors. We will now begin taking your comments. The first commenter will be Denise Fisher Faison, followed by Eddie W. Williams, Jr.
Good evening. My name is Denise Fisher Faison, and I have lived in Roseboro since 1986. I live 2 miles from the landfill. I am concerned about what allowing a facility like Sapphire plant being placed at the landfill will do to my community. We have lived with the truck traffic and the noise for as long as this landfill has been here. I am concerned that this facility will mean that the truck traffic will increase to a lot more than it is now. There are already about 250 trucks a day that enter and leave this place. I am retired, so I hear the truck traffic daily. Most days they are lined up as early as 5:30 a.m., waiting to get into the facility. Does putting a new facility at the landfill mean that we will have truck traffic 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? These trucks will be carrying compressed methane to some unknown location. From what I have learned, this is a very flammable and dangerous gas. Who is going to guarantee me that there will not be some kind of explosion or fire either at the landfill or on the road to wherever these trucks are going? This situation is not safe for anyone. The last time there was a large enough fire out here for several fire departments to respond, local residents were not notified of what was happening. I'm not even sure that there is any kind of emergency evacuation plan to make sure that our lives are not placed in danger. Just like other people have said, I feel like no one cares about who we are here and will never do anything that will make us safe from the bad air that we are breathing now. Why should we be expected to breathe the worst air and suffer the worst health consequences that result? My community should not be one that always gets dumped on. Please deny the permit for Sapphire Renewable Natural Gas at the Sampson County landfill. Politicians should not make money over the lives of people that they are supposed to represent. Thank you.
Our next speaker, Mr. Williams.
Good evening. My name is Eddie Williams. I lived in the Mount Pleasant church community. 50 years ago, I moved from behind Smithville, Packing, formerly London's. I want to live in a rural area where I could raise a family, and plant a garden, sit in the backyard, and enjoy life. Simply pleasure. Since that time, I have concern about the food growing in my garden. Is it safe to eat? My wife does not put clothes on the clothesline anymore. We cannot sit outside and breathe fresh air. My son lives in Arlington, Virginia, and when he comes home, he asks, "What is that smell?" At night, the smell is on our house, and it is gassy smell. The Sampson County landfill should be capped and should not have any rob us of our quality of life. And years ago, I told them to put the landfill way out in the country, because this is the largest county in the state of North Carolina. It's 85 miles wide. And I asked them to put that landfill not near community, but no, they wanted to put it there. So I've been fighting them, still fighting. Y'all need to do something right.
Our next speaker will be Ruby Bell, followed by Whitney Parker, and then Barbara Faison.
Happy evening. I'm Ruby Bell, a resident of Sampson County. I am opposed to the air quality permit for the Sapphire Renewable Natural Gas Facility to be co-located with the Sampson County landfill. Sampson County is a Tier 1 county, which ranks it among the lowest income counties with low environmental and health rankings. We are an environmentally unjust community where Black, Indigenous, and people of color reside. Sampson County is a sacrifice zone. We are cumulatively impacted, meaning that the totality of exposures to contaminations of chemicals and non-chemical stressors from the livestock industry, from the poultry industry, the wood pellet industry, and the landfill all have detrimental effects on our health, our well-being, and quality of life. We do not need anything else in our community. So I stand here tonight just to say no to another polluting industry. No to putting our health at risk. No to putting money over people. No to the landfill digester. I have a petition here with me tonight that has been signed by members of Sampson County and my community, which are opposing the Sapphire Renewable plant. Thank you.
Our next speaker, Whitney Parker, followed by Barbara Faison, and then Abdullah Fisher.
Good afternoon, Whitney Parker, Snow Hill community. This facility, this permit is a hard no for me for various obvious reasons, but the biggest reasons are explosions, which are pretty much documented that there are big explosions. I don't even think Sampson County is equipped fighter-wise or even hospital-wise to even handle toxic explosions. Lastly, I don't think there's been a medical impact assessment done for any of these permits that have come through Sampson County or even Snow Hill. It's time to stop suffering for my community. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Please hold your applause.
Our next speaker, Barbara Faison, followed by Abdullah Fisher, and then Paul B. Fisher.
My name is Barbara Faison, and I'm a citizen of Clinton, North Carolina. I am opposed to the Sapphire plant. Where do I begin? So much news about my home county of Sampson. News about hogways, lagoons, clean water, wood pellets, poultry and turkey farms that's unregulated, biogas, renewable energy. What really is this? Will it harm any of us health-wise? What do we do with all this waste that is coming into our county? I live 8 miles from Snow Hill landfill, and early in the morning, around 7 or 8 o'clock when I wake up, I open the door to receive fresh air. Fresh air I do not receive. I receive the smell of the fumes of gas coming from the landfill that early in the morning. There used to be a phone number that you call over in Fayetteville to report smells, especially from Lundy's or wherever. And I don't know where that ever materialized from or whether they got that number still going, but I don't hear much from it because you used to see it or hear it in the newspaper all the time. We have all this garbage coming into our county with whatever's in it, and we don't know. We the people here don't know, and we don't have no earthly ideas of where all these trucks are coming from and what they're carrying and spilling on our highways, the contents leaving the city or the state to clean it up. What are we going to do about this? Our cities are not trained to deal with all the effects it may have on the human body. We need to fund our own independent research and find the answer, my friends and neighbors. Many souls have gone on with illnesses that have never been explained in the Snow Hill community. We have to save ourselves. The people have the power. We elect county commissioners and other officials to do what's right for the county. Now let's hold them accountable.
Our next speaker, Abdullah Fisher, followed by Paul B. Fisher and Grady McCallie.
All right, how you doing? My name is Abdullah Fisher. When I got here this afternoon, I saw this map and I saw this circle. Everybody saw this. What that looks like to me is like a danger zone. Like if somebody was to drop a bomb, that's the radius that it would cover. So whenever I say no to the Sapphire RNG, because if something happens, explosion, where are these people in this area supposed to go? Nobody's got an answer for that. What are they supposed to do? So a big no, because this is dangerous, and a lot of questions that need to be answered. And second of all, why this location? Why this area here? Big question. That's all I got to say.
Our next speaker, Paul B. Fisher, followed by Grady McCalley, and then Larry Sutton. Okay. All right. So Grady McCalley.
Good evening. I'm Grady McCauley. I'm Policy Director with the North Carolina Conservation Network, and really appreciate the chance to speak with you all this evening. And I'm grateful for you all being here. I realize we're all here after hours, but it's not easy to do what you do, and I appreciate you being here. I have two comments that I want to make. One is a concern that the information in the record is not sufficient for us to tell whether this proposed project, Sapphire, would be a net benefit or a net harm to the community. I also think there's not enough information in the record to tell whether it would comply with the Clean Air Act, which is the core responsibility that you all carry. About a week and a half ago, we submitted a letter, an initial comment letter, identifying some of the questions we have, some of the things that we think are missing from the record. One of the key pieces is information on what the baseline of emissions is now, what's coming out of the landfill, and how is it being managed. Now, without that, it's impossible to tell whether what Sapphire is planning is a step forward or a step back, either from the perspective of the community or strictly in terms of compliance with the Clean Air Act. I understand that in response to our letter, a number of you all have been pulling long hours to try and collect information that we're asking for, and I really appreciate that. I don't think we've got enough time ourselves to give you good comments by the end of this week on it, and I hope that as you all are getting information from Sapphire, you'll consider reopening a comment period if you can't extend this one, so that we, the community, everyone can provide comments to you on the full information, the full record of what is happening now at the landfill and the facility that's proposed. The second comment that I want to make, and this goes back to Mr. Poland, something that you said at the beginning of the description of this facility, that currently this is the landfill, and the landfill has strong ownership of Sapphire or common ownership, common interest, that Sapphire has requested an independent Clean Air Act permit. I encourage you not to grant them an independent Clean Air Act permit. I think that this is, I think that this process has the issue the wrong way around. This landfill is the second largest regulated landfill for methane emissions in the country, 18th largest source. A 2004 document estimated that at peak, this landfill will produce over 12,000 cubic feet per minute of landfill gas. The question is, how are the landfill emissions being regulated and controlled and diminished? And Sapphire may be part of the answer, but it's only dealing with about half of the flow. So the question is, for the sake of the community, for the sake of compliance to the landfill, what's the overall plan? And if you approve the Sapphire permit, you may be locking in a treatment technology that deals with less than half of the methane flow, or treatment technology that relies on additional trucks or a pipeline that isn't sized to solve the landfill's problem. So I encourage you to turn this around, address the question of the air emissions from the landfill, and then see if there's a place for Sapphire. Thanks.
Our next speaker is Larry Sutton, followed by Sherry Williams, and then Edward Gilliam.
Good evening. My name is Larry Sutton, and I stay at 4761 Bearskin Road, Clinton, North Carolina. I am about 7 miles from the county landfill. I am a bit surprised, and it's a little amusing to me that during your introduction while you were here, no one on the panel mentioned the name Snow Hill, and very few have mentioned the name Snow Hill since. Now, Snow Hill to me is synonymous with the landfill. Snow Hill is the community the landfill has been placed in. As a small child growing up in this community, this area, Snow Hill was a thriving community. Today, Snow Hill has been decimated by the landfill. So there is a place called Snow Hill near Roseboro, and the landfill is located in the Snow Hill community that has decimated that community over the past 50 years or so. So, number one, I am adamantly opposed to the proposed Sapphire Renewable gas facility to be built or located in the Snow Hill community at the landfill. I'm strongly against that. Why? First and foremost, anything that is done to potentially generate profit shouldn't be allowed. We need to be considering closing the landfill, not expanding the landfill. Sapphire would be in position to receive the garbage and the gas over time as well. So my concern is, let's not extend the life of this landfill. Let's prepare to wish it farewell. And that time, I hope, is drawing near. Number two, no one else should get to profit off the back of the Snow Hill residents. For decades now, they have been the guinea pigs and the experiment of the landfill.
Thank you.
So in closing, thank you for coming and listening to our comments about the landfill.
Our next speaker is Sherry Williams, followed by Edward Gillum and Maya Hutt.
Good afternoon. My name is Sherry White Williamson. I am the Director of Environmental Justice Strategy at the North Carolina Conservation Network, and I'm also the co-founder of the Environmental Justice Community Action Network here in Sampson County. I have prepared remarks, but in coming up on the street here, I actually have prepared some other remarks that I'd like to address first. First, I'm concerned that as I drove up onto the street, that there was obvious police presence. Just that indicates the lack of the cultural awareness of this group. We work with many Latino communities here in Sampson County, and the police presence would prevent their participation. They would be intimidated by this. So the presence that the police are here suggests that you may not be culturally aware of the community that you are coming to work in. Second, I've never seen, and I've been to many of these hearings, a sign out front saying that we could not put a sign out in front of the facility. We had signs prepared by young children who wanted to put the signs up to indicate that they are concerned about their future in the landfill here. Instead, we're met with something that says that we can't do that. That's a Second Amendment violation, a First Amendment violation, I'm sorry. So the fact that the community, those who are not able to stand here at the podium and speak, were not able to speak through signs, says something else about the agency. Third, you failed to offer a virtual option in this county. Virtual options are usually available. Sampson County is a large county. Many people would not be able to come here. There was not even a virtual option to sign up if they wanted to speak here. They had to physically come here. This is a poor county. Many people don't have cars to get back and forth. So you have prevented perhaps other people who might have been here not to be able to participate because there was not a virtual option. I'm further concerned that the manner in which this notice was issued and the lack of outreach to our Latino community demonstrates that this agency has no concern whatsoever for the conditions that living near this 1,300-acre landfill creates. There are Latino community citizens who live out near that landfill. They learned about this less than a week ago. You did not use the local AM station. That is a Latino station that has broadcasting ability. You did not contact any of the Latino churches in town. So the Latino presence that should have been here is not here for lack of what DEQ failed to do. So there are many problems with this hearing being here and now. We asked for a 30-day extension, and DEQ said no. So the community was not prepared, is not prepared, and should have been given more time to be able to get ready to participate in this opportunity. To our side over here, I know you all did a map, but I want you all and the community to see the breakdown. More than 90%, more than 75% of that community is minority. But DEQ did not count the minority. We have biracial and other minorities that should have been counted. Those were not counted in figuring out the EJ report. So there are a lot of issues that have not been addressed through this process, and we all say no to Sapphire. Thank you.
Our next speaker, Mr. Edward Gillum, followed by Maya Hutt, and then Deborah Dix Maxwell.
Good evening. My name is Edward Gillum. I live at 817 West 2nd Street, Garland, North Carolina, here in Sampson County. I first want to start thanking the opportunity for actually speaking on behalf of this. We have a few concerns, well, a lot of concerns. I think that we're all saying the same thing. Acknowledgement, number one, and assessments and research. I think that has not been given to us to actually even think about and consider what's going on and whatnot. And that we as a people that have to live here and reside here, we should be offered that right, like anybody else and whatnot. Different other places that have this facility, I mean, where's the research? What's the long-term effects of it? You know, the trucks and everything else, the present, effects of it and whatnot. So we really need that information. We yearn for it. Then there's accountability, which is very limited in Sampson County from the past. We have environmental issues that we can talk about all day and all night. They are not being addressed right now. And it's falling on a deaf ear, and it shouldn't be, because they are the people. We work hard. All we're doing is trying to raise our families and live a righteous, wholesome life, and we need that. So we need the cooperation of the agencies and whatnot, and the people to make our lives better, and to make sure that things are right. Safety. One thing about safety, who's going to respond when this stuff happens? If anything happens, God forbids, who's able to do that? We know that education and background in that and training and everything is imperative for you to have successful responses and everything within the county. I want to live in a place where I know that my family is going to be safe. If there's something that does happen, I want that person to be responsible and can respond in a dignified and a respectful and know what they're doing, not just run around with their heads cut off. And that's not going to happen. The thing about it is, we need more time. It's like we've been talking about. We need more time. We need to check things out. We need to go over this thing and whatnot, because it's not right. It's not right. And we deserve that. We are people. We deserve the respect. We're going to get respect, and we're going to keep talking about this right here. I mean, because just like right out there just now, that's not acceptable, not at all, because that's our voice. Those signs are our voice. That's what we stand for. I'm done.
Our next speaker, Maya Hutt, followed by Deborah Dix Maxwell, and then Hannah Claus.
Hello, my name is Maya Hutt. I'm an attorney with the Southern Environmental Law Center. Thank you for the opportunity to give comments tonight. Many people have talked about the lack of transparency during this comment period, and about the fact that neither DAQ nor Sapphire have given the community the information and the time that they need to understand how this facility will impact them. I want to be very clear. It is a procedural issue, but it is not just a procedural issue. These details matter. This is not the first so-called RNG facility built at the Sampson County landfill. For nearly 10 years, a GFL subsidiary called Black Creek Renewables operated 6 landfill gas combustion engines at the landfill. They also claimed that this was a beneficial use of the landfill gas. About 8 years into that facility's operation, DAQ discovered that this facility was emitting a significant amount of formaldehyde, a potent human carcinogen. For 8 years this was happening, and there was no disclosure. This is why these details matter. But I also want to talk about this proposed permit for another so-called renewable natural gas project. Sapphire says that this facility is not a major source of hazardous air pollutants. But Sapphire's emission calculations are not based on the landfill gas that is actually produced at the Sampson County landfill. Instead, they are using default values from EPA's AP42 guidance. EPA has repeatedly told the industry and regulators not to use AP42 default figures. It has even issued an enforcement alert to this effect. Even worse, Sapphire doesn't even use the correct AP42 values. It assumes that the landfill gas will have a relatively low hazardous air pollutant content because they're basing their calculations on AP42 values coming from landfills that only accept residential waste. We all know that the Sampson County landfill has accepted everything from PFAS-contaminated leachate from the Chemours factory to waste from the Navassa Superfund site. This is a really important detail, and it directly impacts the level of pollution from this facility. Sapphire has got it wrong, and DAQ so far has accepted bad information. This is not acceptable for an agency whose duty it is to protect North Carolinians. DAQ needs to be honest and transparent and get these details right. Thank you.
Now we will hear from Deborah Dix Maxwell, followed by Hannah Claus, and then Georgette Burt.
Good evening. My name is Deborah Dix Maxwell. No, I do not reside in Sampson County. My home is North Carolina because I'm the president of North Carolina NAACP. When there is an injustice done to people of color, marginalized people anywhere within this state, we will be there. A major injustice has been done through the years to the people of Sampson County. And to approve the Sapphire permit will be another environmental climate justice disaster for these individuals. Just by looking at that map, you can see what has occurred. And I believe that DEQ has an equity advisory committee, and one of the basic tenets was that if there was that much of a minority population, there should be a hearing. The community is not supposed to request a hearing. There's supposed to be a hearing to make sure that impact against people of color, poor, rich, black, white, brown, does not continually occur as it has continually occurred in southeastern North Carolina. Furthermore, if there are not appropriate statistical research and studies, which needed to be done by who? Sapphire, then this permit should not be approved. No baseline perspective is unacceptable. Also, there's the mention of the potential of accidents. Who in the fire department will be trained to handle this? DEQ should, can, and needs to do better for the marginalized citizens of North Carolina. Secretary Reagan left you with an advisory board, left a new director who should heed his calls and make sure that things are done for everyone, because southeastern North Carolina is tired of being the EJ dumping ground, even though we know we're not the mother county of environmental justice network, of environmental justice. So we need to stop Sapphire and end the placement of things within this area and this community. We were just here last month for what? The hog and swine permit. So don't say it doesn't happen too much around here. Marginalization and decriminalization and forgetting about the people of this community has gone on too long. Thank you.
Our next speaker, Hannah Kloss, followed by Georgette Burt, and then Courtney Woods.
Good evening. My name is Hannah, and I'm a law student working with the Southern Environmental Law Center. I am from North Carolina, and I care deeply about the health of North Carolinians and the quality of the environment here. The draft permit lacks enforceable conditions to ensure compliance with the North Carolina Pollution Control Act and the Clean Air Act. DEQ must revise the draft permit to include conditions of sufficient quality and quantity to ensure accountability. It must include these conditions so that DEQ can quickly detect any instance in which the landfill gas facility pollutes more than is assumed by the draft permit, and it can enforce the permit conditions. DEQ must revise the draft permit to include the following enforceable monitoring and operating conditions to ensure that the conditions are used to calculate potential to emit and the health and environment of the Snow Hill community is protected. The first condition, a condition limiting maximum flow of landfill gas entering the facility. Without this condition, the facility will likely act on the financial incentive to increase landfill generation at this site. The second, a monitoring requirement and maximum flow condition for methane in the waste gas directed towards the thermal oxidizer. Third, conditions that would require monitoring and a maximum flow of waste gas into the open flare. Fourth, a condition limiting simultaneous operation of the thermal oxidizer and open flare. And lastly, DEQ cannot ensure that the open flare is operated at a specific combustion efficiency and the pollutants are being destroyed at a rate promised by the facility. So DEQ must require that the facility employ an enclosed flare and continuously monitor emissions from the flare. Without these conditions, DEQ cannot fulfill its mission of protecting and improving air quality in North Carolina for the health, benefit, and economic well-being of the Snow Hill community.
No comment.
Our next speaker will be Courtney Woods, followed by Estella Loar, and then Rebecca Witter.
Good evening. I'm Courtney Woods. I'm a resident of Durham, North Carolina, and also a faculty member at UNC Chapel Hill School of Public Health, where I'm an environmental health scientist. I'd like to speak specifically to the concerns about PFAS, or perfluoroalkyl substances, that are emitted, released into the environment currently at the landfill, and the potential for airborne emissions. As we know, perfluoroalkyl substances, PFAS, are referred to as forever chemicals because they're quite persistent, very difficult to destroy even at very high temperatures, and there's concern that the temperatures that will be reached for flaring at the facility may not destroy the PFAS. There are a number of studies that demonstrate that landfills are a primary source of PFAS migrating into the surrounding environment. Previous work from our research group at UNC have found elevated levels of PFAS in Bearskin Creek, just adjacent to the Sampson County landfill, but not upstream of the landfill. Another independent study referred to as the North Carolina Collective Study, which measured PFAS in 9 landfills across the county, measured the highest levels of PFAS, PFBS, PFPEA, PFHPA at the Sampson County landfill, but not at these other landfills across the county, or across the state. And of course, this is just a short list of the thousands of PFAS that exist and that are currently not monitored at the landfill. Currently, there's no method to measure PFAS in landfill gas. That research is currently being conducted at NC State. It's also not clear, as I mentioned before, whether PFAS are destroyed during the flaring process. That will happen regularly as a part of the landfill gas capture process proposed by Sapphire. Lastly, while there are many known health effects of PFAS exposure, including liver and kidney diseases, thyroid diseases, low infant birth weight, increased cancer risks, there are few studies that have examined airborne PFAS exposure. And EPA, through their recent regulations for PFAS in water, have effectively indicated that there are no safe levels of exposure to PFAS. I will close my remarks by saying that the impacts of airborne emissions from flaring and as well as from the landfill gas are unclear. There is uncertainty in terms of what exposure levels may exist for neighboring residents. And given the uncertainties of airborne exposures and health impacts, I believe that this permit should not be granted. There are just too many unknowns. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Estella Laura, followed by Rebecca Witter, and then followed by Abdullah W. McHaney.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Estella Moore, and I'm a new resident to North Carolina and an even newer resident to Sampson County. I currently live in Clinton, North Carolina. So with that, I bring a set of kind of fresh-eared eyes to this situation. But I have to say, when I first came here and saw the landfill, I was astonished, appalled. That was almost unbelievable. And then when I heard the history of how it was established, I was disgusted. And then when I heard of the consequences of the landfill, I became concerned. I have called and written the EPA to complain about the air quality in this area. I have complained and written letters locally complaining about the air quality in this area. And to date, I did get a letter from the EPA saying that they have no jurisdiction, and I have to call my local state and local officials, which I have done. And so my concern, and to me, the level of pollution is not just the detail. It is the consequence of living here, the consequence of what's happened, the consequence of what the future generation may be have to succumb to. And so I would like to focus on the issue right now of the lack of regulatory authority and the lack of oversight. I personally am opposed to expanding any more of the landfill. I would think the more responsible position would be to reduce, not expand. Well, I'm going to address the lack of regulatory authority and oversight. So I have not heard of what proposed oversight, the proposed oversight. The last sentence in the presentation was there was going to be oversight, but by who? Is it going to be increased? Is it going to be improved? Will there be real consequences? I mean, real consequences for a pollutant that will deter them from what's been going on for the last 50 years? Or it seems that this committee is comfortable with the level of regulatory authority and oversight that presently exists, which is woefully inadequate. So I'm going to make a rebuttable presumption. And that rebuttable presumption is that nobody on this committee would want that landfill in their community. And so, but it's rebuttable. And so if there is someone, now's the time to say it. And so if you would not want this in your community, should we do, what would you do to try to prevent it? And help us to do that. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Rebecca Witter, followed by Abdullah W. Mack, and then Christine Diaz. I'm sorry, I apologize, Abdullah.
Good evening. Thank you for hosting the public hearing. I appreciate this opportunity to share comments. I'm Dr. Rebecca Witter, Associate Professor of Sustainable Development at Appalachian State University, and member since 2020 of a collaborative transdisciplinary research partnership that's been conducting research on environmental injustice in Eastern North Carolina. I'm speaking tonight representing myself. In my brief time, I'd like to make a request that the DEQ meaningfully consider cumulative impacts in the permitting process. In response to recent executive orders which recognize the need to address how social inequities and climate change exacerbate exposure to pollution, the EPA has prioritized the development and implementation of cumulative impact assessment. Any meaningful assessment, they recognize, of cumulative impacts needs to include both chemical and non-chemical stressors, both social and ecological harms. According to the DEQ's draft environmental justice report on this project, it's being developed in an overburdened community, characterized in its own terms as being underserved, impoverished, minoritized, having limited English proficiency, high health concerns, and with 19 other permits all within this 1 mile radius. All of these factors, plus the lack of meaningful outreach to overburdened communities living within and outside this radius, need to be taken into consideration. Even as the DEQ observes that the project takes place in an overburdened community, it's not making decisions that take cumulative impacts into account, so it would appear. Instead, I'm afraid it's allowing greenwashing to prop up and excuse the injustices of an already poorly regulated industry. The word renewable is supposed to refer to systems that regenerate naturally. Industry and the DEQ enable an abuse of this term when it applies to projects that hinge on industrialized pollution. According to the state's own records, the Sampson County landfill is a known emitter of volatile organic compounds, tons of carbon monoxide, tons of hazardous air pollutants, and add to this the concerns we've heard tonight: safety, truck traffic, not being able to enjoy one's home and one's garden, the other polluting industries, black land loss, community decimation, profit over people, PFAS migration, lack of oversight and authority, and more. I just want to let you know you've been heard. The industry and the DEQ appear to assume, based on limited data, that this project represents an amelioration of these harms. Instead, there appears to be as much, if not more, indication that it could do the opposite, that it enables a continuity of industrialized pollution and environmental injustices, and indeed renews these instead. Thank you for the time.
Can I see the next name? I just want to see if I have it. Muhammad?
Our next speaker is Abdullah W. Muhammad.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, I'd like to introduce myself. I live in the Mount Pleasant community, and I'm also a farmer, animal lover. I'm raising some goats. And I received a certificate from my local community college. And one of the main things I learned in taking that course is the word airborne. So at this time, would everybody please take a breath? Exhale. What do you smell? Fresh air. Am I correct? At your birth, you smelled the inside of a hospital, I think. I do believe that we should take more as individuals as being responsible and take care of our earth. where we live. We can't pass the buck to a staff, to an individual. We all live here together. We cohabitate. What hurts me is going to hurt you eventually. It's going to spread. If that pebble drops on the other side of the ocean, eventually it's going to reach your side. That landfill is going to eventually reach your side. Take another breath. Is it still fresh? Keep breathing. Is it still fresh? No, there's something airborne that your naked eye cannot detect, which goes into your lungs, which will create eventually pneumonia. One of my friends who live in Snow Hill recently told me he just buried one of his relatives. She was young, but they live on top of the hill, if you want to put it that way. We live at the foot. But if you're in that vicinity every day, take a breath. Don't ignore that. See if you can breathe. How long can you live without a breath of fresh air? Will you have to go to the mountain? Sure you will. But everybody can't do that. Some of us got to stay in, what is that, scent. I invite people to come to my community, coming in from other states. What's that smell? The dog did it. Well, who's the dog? Whose dog is it? Okay? So my wife, I'd say she does a deep dive. I just come up for air. Now I can breathe. Okay? So we all community minded people, we should be, and we all should take personal responsibility. We have individual responsibility to take care of our community. So I say no. We don't need more gas in the air. There's enough now. We can't breathe now. So with that being said, I will close. Before my 30 seconds run out, my camera already ran out, so I'm not even going to see me on this one. Anyway, thank you all very much.
Our next speaker is Christine Diaz, followed by Bernice Cooper, and then Lindsay Savelli.
Hello, good evening. My name is Christine Diaz. I live in Durham, North Carolina, and I'm the Environmental Justice Coordinator with NC Conservation Network. For community members to adequately express concerns for this draft permit, DAQ should, at minimum, extend the comment period and provide the additional time and information necessary to understand the disproportionate impacts of this project to the community and their health. In the draft permit and accompanying materials, there's a lack of clarity in the information necessary to understand the full impact of what the landfill to gas digester would be. It's unclear if the facility is adequately regulated and monitored to protect community health with safeguards. This information is necessary to demonstrate commitment to environmental justice from DAQ, which requires meaningful involvement of impacted community members. It's especially important because of the community's composition. Demographically, adverse health outcomes of this facility would be borne in a disproportionate burden for every indicator for residents near the landfill, including race and income, as well as age, sex, disability, poverty, limited English proficiency, educational attainment, and health-sensitive receptors and cumulative impacts according to DEQ's own EJ report. Additionally, existing air toxics cancer risks living around this facility are in the 95th percentile compared to North Carolina and in the 80 to 90th percentile compared to the rest of the country. The draft permit authorizes Sapphire to emit toxic air pollutants, including benzene and hydrogen chloride, and additional air toxics. Neighbors here deserve to know, and DAQ has an obligation to ensure their health won't be jeopardized. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Bernice Cooper, followed by Lindsay Savelli, and then Amanda Strawberman.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. My name is Bernice Cooper. I live in Roseboro, the Snow Hill community. I live right across the road from the landfill. I have lived here since 1973. The landfill was not there when we moved here. We tried very hard, we fought not to get that landfill in our community, but our commissioners sold us out. I'm concerned about the risk to us because of the air pollution. The Snow Hill community has had a lot of people to die over the years, a lot more than you would expect. We all know that it is what we're smelling and what we're not smelling from that landfill. In fact, people living around that landfill are 95% more likely to die from cancer compared to the rest of North Carolina. And I'm told that we are 80 to 90% more likely to die of cancer compared to the whole United States. It is unimaginable to me that you would think that it's okay to allow something else to go in the landfill without telling us what it will do for our health, our children's health, our great-grandchildren, our grands. Over the last year, we're beginning to find out more of what has gone into that landfill without our ever knowing. Just last year, we were able to prevent toxic soil from another part of the state from being put here. But in stopping that, we found that other contaminant items have been put in the landfill since 2017. We have tolerated this landfill in our community for almost 50 years. And not once have any of you done anything to make it safer for us to even let us know that we are being exposed to here. Enough is enough.
Yes.
We do not want a need of something else in that landfill or being removed from the landfill. Gases. It is time to make the wishes of the people more important than making money. Our elected officials won't protect us, so we have to do everything that we can to protect ourselves. We ask you to please deny the permit request for Sapphire Renewable Natural Gas until we know more about what they plan to do here. And I thank you for your consideration.
Our next speaker is Lindsay Savelli, followed by Amanda Stratterman, followed by Mary Floyd.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Lindsay. I'm an employee at UNC Chapel Hill Gilling School of Global Public Health, and I'm representing myself. I say no to this permit. I'm concerned, first of all, about the intentional stifling of community engagement and voice in this process. There have been multiple requests to extend the comment period or have a new permit period that has been denied, and that is inaccessible, as many of folks have already talked about. Also, the inability to peacefully protest is against our human rights and harms, and our ability to protect ourselves from the harms that this facility is posing. And just for an example, New Jersey has recently passed a new EJ law that requires a 60-day comment period following a hearing, and I think DEQ could take that as an example. Some of my concerns from this landfill are the risks from pollutants. We know that this landfill emits over 3.61 more times vinyl chloride by the Sampson County landfill versus the second largest emitter in the state. That chemical is associated with lung, liver, and cancer and impacts various systems throughout the body, including the nervous and blood system. The diesel truck pollution that will be associated with this facility will not only disrupt people's sleep and quality of life and peace, but it will also emit particulate matter and other harmful chemicals that are associated with COPD, diabetes, asthma, and preventable asthma in children, further impacting future generations. Additionally, per the permit for this facility, it will release 5 pounds per day of hydrogen sulfide. This is associated with increased risk of asthma, decreased lung function, horrible smells, and an increased risk of suicide. Additionally, some folks have talked about the PFAS exposure, which can negatively impact reproduction and immune systems, cause developmental delays, increased risks of certain types of cancers, increase the risk of cholesterol, high blood pressure. These risks are too many to take on, and by approving this permit, you are approving the harm that this community will have to face. Additionally, there's a risk of contamination to natural resources that DEQ is designed to protect, including groundwater and surface waters, which is where we get our water to drink. Sampson County is already impacted by cumulative impacts that DEQ is required by EPA guidelines to follow and has failed to consider. DEQ is also failing to address the root causes of pollution in this community and the health risks by instead prioritizing profits for industries rather than protecting human life and resources, and that needs to change. By permitting this facility, you are going against federal environmental justice initiatives. And by funding gas infrastructure instead of funding infrastructure to protect health and the well-being of residents, including a huge lack of water infrastructure in this area already, a lack of health infrastructure as well, this is where we should be investing our efforts. This facility is intentionally targeting communities of color and low-income communities, and I ask you please to deny this permit. Thank you.
Our next speaker, Amanda Strouderman, followed by Mary Floyd, and one more, and then Jacob Friend.
Good evening. My name is Amanda Strouderman. I'm the Environmental Justice Manager at Clean Air and Sea. I was not going to give comment tonight in order to make space for community members to give their comments. However, it seems that DEQ has taken steps not only not to encourage participation, but to discourage community members from participating tonight. Honestly, it's hard to make sense of this permit or how DEQ has handled requests from the community so far. Along with this permit application and other materials that I glanced over the environmental justice report for Sampson County, which seems to indicate that the highest level of engagement would be needed. Enhanced public engagement, you call it. Yet we asked for an extension and it was not granted. Yet we asked for a change of venue to accommodate the community and it was not granted. Yet there's a significant Spanish-speaking community that was not accommodated with significant translated materials. How can we call this enhanced public engagement when so much information is missing from this permit application, leaving so many questions unanswered? And this information was requested, and yet it was not granted. Questions about this pipeline that were mentioned, for example, where is this pipeline planned to be built? How long will it take? How long will gas be transported via compressed gas through the community on the same roads with residential vehicles, school buses, whose hazards include fires, explosions, and toxic gas exposures? Where and when will this pipeline be built, and what risks are associated with that? Clearly, there's a lot of missing information here in terms of the type of waste that will contribute to the landfill gases and that will be processed here, and what happens to the gas that exceeds the capacity of this system. I personally have a lot of questions and comments regarding the permit that I will detail in written form. But let's go back for a moment to enhance public engagement. Upon arriving this evening, as my friend Sherry White Williamson mentioned, community members and advocates were confronted with the unusual presence of law enforcement for a permit hearing. Intimidating as that was, we were then greeted by DEQ staff who promptly turned away our signs while also claiming it is because you are here to listen. Nothing about this process suggests that you are here to listen to community members. In the hearing officer's opening statement, she said that all comments will be weighed equally in the decision for this permit. but that's not true. In fact, DAQ has stated that it is not within their authority to deny permits based on concerns about environmental justice or health concerns. Quoting my friend Sherry, who didn't have enough time to finish her comment earlier, "You can and must do better for this community. Stop making excuses for what you can't do and do your job to protect our communities. Deny the permit for Sapphire Renewable Gas."
Our next speaker is Mary Floyd, who will be followed by Jacob Friend, and then Danielle Kuhn.
Good evening. My name is Macy Floyd, and I am a concerned citizen in opposition to the Sapphire gas facility at the Sampson County landfill. The issues caused by the landfill have been plaguing this region and community for more than 50 years now, and it just continues to get worse. The landfill takes in toxic pollutants that contaminate the air, water, and soil throughout the area. Science shows that this landfill is the cause of disproportionately high levels of cancer, liver disease, kidney disease, and more in our community. For example, according to the EPA, levels of benzopyrene, a well-known cancer-causing agent, are 600 times over residential standards in and around this landfill. It is no secret that this landfill is slowly killing us. If you allow this Sapphire gas facility to be added onto the landfill, you will only be exacerbating the already deadly effects of this landfill at the expense of the people. Landfill to gas facilities are proven to emit toxic air pollutants when burning byproducts. They leak greenhouse gases and increase the risk of PFAS air emissions. In addition to the direct effects of the proposed Sapphire facility, the trucks that currently transport trash to the landfill already emit what is equivalent to 500,000 cars worth of air pollution each year. This new facility will only make the noise and air pollution worse for all of us. Because the methane that is harvested by the Sapphire plant will be monetized, GFL will just be incentivized to bring more trash into the landfill to increase methane emissions and in turn make more money for themselves, not investing that money back into the community. We are constantly being exploited for large corporations' gain. The long-term effects of this landfill and proposed gas facility might not ever directly affect you, but I'm 19 years old, and it sure is going to affect me. If you won't do it for your sake, oppose this facility for your children. For RK, for Jimmy, for Sarah, for Jacob, and for me. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jacob Friend, followed by Danielle Kuhn, and then Reverend Jimmy Melvin.
Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak. My name is Jacob Friend, and I'm a concerned citizen opposing the construction of the gas facility at the Sampson County landfill. I have three primary concerns I would like to address that underscore the importance of rejecting this project. First, I believe the change our community needs lies in minimizing the waste going to the landfill and instead investing our resources in promoting and implementing alternatives to landfills. It's time to prioritize innovative approaches like recycling, composting, and waste-to-energy technologies that reduce our dependence on landfills and preserve our natural resources for generations to come. Secondly, if this gas facility project moves forward, it sets a dangerous precedent for the reform and justice that Sampson County deserves. Our residents will bear the burden of this facility without reaping any of the benefits it promises. It is unjust and unfair to expect our community to endure the increased environmental and health risks associated with such a project while receiving no tangible advantages in return. We deserve better. Lastly, the proposed gas facility lacks sufficient checks and safeguards to ensure safe practices, which is highly irresponsible. It is crucial that any project of this magnitude undergoes rigorous scrutiny and adheres to strict regulations, which has not happened in Sampson County for many decades. Without proper oversight and verification, we leave ourselves vulnerable to potential disasters that could have devastating consequences for our community's health and the surrounding ecosystem. I hope we can work together to ensure a future that truly reflects the values and aspirations of Sampson County. Thank you.
Sorry. Our next speaker is Danielle Kuntz, followed by Reverend Jimmy Melvin, and then Richard Kuntz Jr.
My name is Danielle Coons, and I was born and raised in Roseboro, North Carolina, so I am a Sampson County native. I oppose the Sapphire natural gas facility being constructed and operated at the Snow Hill community at the Sampson County landfill. Based on the DEQ report that you all wrote April 26, 2023, the Sapphire natural gas is owned by the same company that owns the Sampson County landfill, which is GFL Environmental. Now, I looked at their quarterly earnings for the end of March, and they have made $1.33 billion. Sampson County is one of the poorest counties in the state, and I think is ranked 578 in the nation. But they made $1.33 billion as of March 2023. Now, Sapphire wants to take this compressed gas from the waste at the landfill, store it on mobile trailers, and transport it by truck to a pipeline injection station that we don't know of. Now, you may not be aware, but there's been several articles about the truck spills that our county has already had to endure. There was even a proposal for a North Carolina legislator to increase the fine because we've had so many truck spills. So to imagine to start a new batch of trucks carrying oil in an environment in a county where most of the fire department is volunteer, that is just extremely dangerous. Now, DEQ, you said in your report, you summarized that many of the surrounding communities around the landfill are underserved, have high poverty rates, have a large Black and brown population, some have limited English proficiency, and the health indicators for those communities, lung cancer, heart disease, diabetes, are all higher than the state average. In other words, many of the communities around the landfill are already underserved, poor, and dying at higher rates of lung cancer, heart disease, and diabetes, to name a few. Yet nothing of as today is being done to change these statistics as the landfill continues to be a top emitter of several cancer-causing chemicals with no monitoring of the landfill whatsoever that we know of as residents. I have spoken directly to many residents. I'm working on my PhD, and residents have complained of not being able to enjoy the outdoors, that the smells from the landfill seep into the walls of their home. I have spoken to several residents who pointed to home after home of multiple family members dying or being stricken with various cancers. Little has been done to monitor or change the conditions for the communities around the landfill. Meanwhile, the conditions worsen, and more communities are impacted by the trucks, the gas, and the rodents attracted to the landfill. Until DEQ, EPA, the North Carolina local and state governments get serious about serving the communities impacted by the landfill, no other company or parent company should be allowed to profit off the landfill while the people who live around the landfill suffer from the pollution. That's $1.33 billion in March. They're getting all the profit, but it's probably $1.3 billion worth of damage that has been done to those communities around that landfill, and they have not experienced any health assessment. There's been little monitoring. No one's tested blood. The water that has been tested has been because of the goodness of university researchers. So I oppose this, and I strongly encourage the DEQ to oppose this as well. Thank you.
Our next speaker, Reverend Jimmy Melvin, followed by Richard Coombs Jr.
Good evening. We're grateful for this opportunity to speak to you. And I stand here as a representative of the clergy and the leaders of our community. This is an ongoing, lifelong experience we've experienced. And I have to acknowledge that even one of my close cousins were one of the commissioners that signed for the landfill to come into this state over this community over 50 years ago. He was one that signed. And I think I'm grateful that we're having this opportunity because I think they bought a pig in the sack. And I don't know if you know that rural language, but that is not knowing what's in the sack, just on what someone said. and there was no research. There was not a lot of data or anything. They just saw that this was a poor county, it's gonna make us some tax money. So here we are again, and I appeal not on behalf of trying to explain, because it's been evidently, there's one question that stuck out to me when I heard the first presentation you made. You said, this is where it will be. You said it will be, you didn't say we are speculating. You stated it will be put on the landfill. You said it will. You didn't say this is a possibility. And my appeal to you, and I'm appealing on behalf of the irrevocable will of God. He doesn't miss anything, and he said we are here in a humanity issue. There would have been other Brown that we had been open, but it was on the 27th that we got the word there's going to be a permit applied for this new plant. You're going to have to respond by the 27th of June, and on the 30th we're going to make a decision. And we found out later that even if it's not decided, we can operate for a year without a permit. So if this is just a rehearsal, and I doubt any one of you live within 10 miles, I won't even take the toll, but I know you're not even 20 miles within the landfill. But you're here. So my appeal to you is if when God came down in the cooler day and came and said, where is your brother Abel? And he put a political spin on it and said, I don't know if I'm my brother keeper. But God said to him, what have you done? His blood speaks to me from the ground. And I pray that your conscience and the opportunity that work for, well, every soul had to be subject to the higher powers, and the powers will be ordained of God. And he that beareth the sword does not bang in vain. He says it'd be better to be in the bottom of the sea, but a millstone about your neck tend to deal with my little ones. And this is a humanity issue, and God is concerned about people, not places and things. So we trust that you will be considerate of this great information. I know it was second nature to you, because you definitely had to hear this before. If you have a position and you're coming to us to see if we know it. So I trust that this will not fall on deaf ears, and even that you will be mindful that one day this blood may be required at your hand of the people that have already been disadvantaged and lives have been cut short because of decisions that people in leadership have made. Those people elected by the people and for the people. To have a powerful meeting this time and not have any commissioners here, it's like our commissioners are not even, we got to come in and fend for ourselves. And they're elected by the people and for the people. So you were here, so I appeal, and I pray that all of us are appealing to the irrevocable will of God that he will do right by us. Thank you. Amen. This is my grandson, I'm just going to stand with him.
Okay. All right, we'll hear from Richard Coombs Jr.
Hi, my name is Richard Coombs III, and I do not want to see a Sapphire-operated gas company on the landfill because so many people will be harmed, and I don't want my grandparents to have to move because Sampson County is a beautiful place with wonderful people. I have a lot of family and friends here, and I do not want them to move either. And before we got here, we went to go see the landfill, and it has a very bad smell. And a lot of people here don't really need a gas company. And a lot of people have gardens and land fields and fruits and animals. Just imagine what it could do. And look here, there will be a lot of people will have to go to the doctor. Thank you, and God bless you.
That is all the names I have for those registered to speak. If you did not speak tonight, but still want to provide comments on the issuance of the draft air quality permit to Sapphire Renewable Natural Gas, remember there are several other ways to provide comments until the end of the comment period on Friday, June 30th, 2023 at 5:00 p.m. You may call 919-707-8726 and leave a voicemail message with your first and last name, whom you're representing, and state your comments related to Sapphire Renewable Natural Gas. You can provide written comments via email to daq.publiccomments@ncdenr.gov with sapphire.22A in the subject line. You can use postal mail to submit written comments to the address listed in the public notice. Mailed comments must be postmarked by Friday, June 30th. You may also submit your prepared written comments tonight in the box on the podium. Based on the information received during tonight's public hearing and comments received throughout the comment period, I will make a recommendation to the Director of the Division of Air Quality for his consideration in making a final decision on the air quality permit for Sapphire Renewable Natural Gas. Thank you all for your cooperation, attendance, and interest in the air quality permitting process. This public hearing is now adjourned.